If Noah has any spine, the follow-up video that he claimed he's going to make will include a full retraction of essentially everything. I am not joking when I say to all of you with full sincerity that this is quite possibly the worst takedown I've seen. Now, Noah Samsen has been kind with me in DMs, but sometimes kindness is just a way of placating people while you stab them in the back.
It is a fair question to ask, Paul. Why are you devoting time to analyzing the personal drama of a bunch of these online micro-celebrity political influencers, many of whom come off as creepy, egotistical, emotional manipulators, for example?
I am, because this is an enormous waste of time, just going to rip the L from your hands. She said what she said. She thinks white people are colonizers. If you are, with respect, too spineless to own up to the fact that she clearly
dude, this is
wait,
like,
Noah,
yeah,
this is the problem I have. I get framed as a bully when a person is behind me screaming and dancing a point, and I point at it and say, that's fucked.
The only thing that's fucked is the S-tier level gaslighting that just occurred in 15 seconds. First, the visceral insult couched in feigned politeness. With respect, you're kind of spineless. And then preempting the emotional response.
Like, Noah.
And then Vaush turns around and frames himself as the victim and says he's the bully. It's like, oh my God, it is creepy and fascinating to watch. And I don't blame anyone who says, I'm just not even going to pay attention to any of these weirdos because, you know, nothing they have to say is valuable. And I kind of agree. I would not advise anyone to get their political or social or cultural takes from someone like Vaush.
Hello, Vaush, you really saying Peterson is a fascist? Yeah. Yeah, 100. Yeah, of course.
But you have to consider two things. Number one, these internet debate people, they're on sort of the front end of the political innovation curve in that the discussions and debates and the arguments and rationalizations they hone, they end up trickling down into mainstream political conversations, for better or worse. So it's important to kind of keep an eye on how things go in this space. But more interestingly, we're going to analyze the psychosocial consequences of mixing bad ideas with people of weak character. And by character, I mean the online persona that people like Vaush create for themselves, because I don't know him in real life. Because the internal conflict that is occurring on the online left,
because you're so triggered by the left,
lefty dumb shit,
is the same mechanism that destabilizes political factions of any size, whether it's a group of friends or an entire political party. And most importantly, we'll look at how to have a healthy relationship with social media so you don't create a fake persona online that crumbles upon getting real life pushback. Like this guy, Noah Samsen, did after creating a video that catalyzed this whole schism in the online left.
So let me clarify there, because
Please.
I wasn't aware that she had reached out to come onto the stream. I guess I assumed that it was the reverse, that like someone from the Discord had brought her on. But the fact, I was definitely like off the mark in that. And so that, again, like my intent there was to say, like, and first I clarified, like,
Noah Samsen is a left-wing video essayist who recently made a video criticizing left-wingers who actually go out and debate and engage with people who disagree with them. He has since unlisted his video, which is interesting given how condescendingly confident he comes off in it.
Hi everyone, welcome back to this television show. I'm Noah Samsen, your host on google.com/youtube.com's best website. Warning, warning, alert, alert, red alert, alert, alert. This is not an anti-debate bro video. This video is, and I hope we can improve our online conduct and get better at recognizing white supremacist structures in leftist communities. Video.
So right off the bat, we are immediately sucked into the critical race theory frame where everything from 1940s German dictatorships to Beverly Hill-born gender abolitionists like Vaush,
She's clean and not stinky because we bathed her last night.
are all participating in the infinitely permeable and malleable force of white supremacy. And this works out great for actual white supremacists who are slowly but surely capitalizing on legitimate class grievances in Western society and becoming increasingly hard to identify because some people are careless with their words and accuse people like Vaush of being the same thing as a genuine white supremacist.
So even with the best intentions, the behavior and viewpoints born out of this space is still going to be rooted in racist frameworks unless the concept of whiteness is addressed. Essentially, if you read Marx and Trotsky and Gramsci and What You Want to Do Ski and whomever else, but not Du Bois, Fanon, Hooks, Crenshaw, etc., you might be a leftist white supremacist.
Now, the next thing Noah says in his video is equally foolish, in my opinion, because it demonstrates how much pathological collectivism has seeped into his psychology.
So much good faith. You're not even going to believe how much faith is good in there. Good faith all the time. One of the things I hear thrown around the debate zone a lot is the concept of the left having a diversity of tactics. So different styles of content for different audiences, all with the intent of spreading leftism as far and wide as possible. And on a macro lens, the better we are at making this content, the more views it gets, and the wider audiences are cultivated, the better off we will be, because this will mean less people gravitating towards right-wing content and more people learning about socialism. And that all sounds good to me.
The assumption that's built into this framing is that all of these online leftists are avatars acting on behalf of a collective ideology that they supposedly all agree on, which they don't and never will. I think there are valid perspectives to be gained from studying Marxism, and I could warm up to the idea of market socialism or something like that. But if the socialism Noah Samsen is talking about requires a fundamental deconstruction of whiteness, then it's a non-starter. When you view yourself as someone who is acting on behalf of an already established ideology that you've accepted as being factual, then you end up becoming a puppet of that ideology, and you end up just rattling off ideological talking points until you end up defending someone who justified racial violence.
Number 4 is especially relevant here. Reactionary debaters smuggle assumptions into hypotheticals, hoping you get distracted with the hypothetical rather than challenge the assumption. This is precisely what happened to Professor Flowers regarding the topic of genocide, and this distraction has forced her onto her back foot ever since. Here she is talking about it in her final video on the topic.
So there are a lot of people who are saying that I'm genocidal, and I just want to clear up what I mean. What I mean to say is that there is no amount of violence that colonized people can enact towards their colonizers that will ever compare to what colonizers have done to them. That compares to the millions of kidnapped and enslaved people, to the thousands of years of history and way of life that has been wiped out.
She is right. Do I need to explain that further? Hopefully not, because I'm not gonna.
It's not my job to educate you.
So Professor Flowers says these things cannot be compared, and attempting to do so downplays this very real history of oppression. Again, an objectively true statement.
I want to show you what it means for someone to be ideologically possessed.
It's not my job to educate you.
And so you can tell when you're talking to someone like that, because this is something I learned from reading Solzhenitsyn, is because you can predict absolutely everything they're going to say. Once you know the algorithmic substructure of their political ideology, which is usually predicated on about 5 or 6 axioms, you can use the axioms to automatically generate speech content. You don't even have to hear the person. You can just predict what they're going to say.
You might be a leftist white supremacist.
These are, in fact, manifestations of white supremacy.
Right. Ideology of white supremacy.
But white supremacy is so much more than this.
White supremacy is terrorism.
I hope we can improve our online conduct and get better at recognizing white supremacist structures in leftist communities.
I think it should be the responsibility of white people to dismantle racism, but at the same time, we're kind of just waiting on them.
Well, here I am. How about we stop focusing on race so much and instead focus on class? Because if black people are disproportionately poor, then any solution that helps poor people is going to disproportionately benefit black people. Just a thought, but maybe that's my whiteness talking. Now, another symptom of ideological possession is the irresponsible application of aesthetic and artistic techniques to push a explicitly political message. Vaush actually articulates this issue quite well.
If you're very good at the aesthetic of a video essay, the way to make sharp cuts and funny jokes and pace everything properly, you can sell any information. Prager University has sharp editing and tight script writing, and in 5 minutes is able to deliver enough misinformation that it can take me 40 minutes to respond to it.
And just to prove this issue goes beyond the political left or right, one of the most egregious examples of this hijacking of aesthetics for propagandistic purposes was Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw's commercial that portrayed him as a literal superhero. This man dared appropriate archetypal imagery for the purposes of pushing an explicitly political message, one that asked people to vote for Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler, who was investigated for insider trading after dumping a bunch of stocks before the pandemic after a congressional coronavirus briefing. And oh, by the way, her husband is the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. So this issue of hijacking political aesthetics doesn't just exist online. And beyond the application of jump cuts and aesthetics, social media influencers will monologue outwards to their audience much like I'm doing, and accuse people of ridiculous things, like in the case of red pill guru Rollo Tomassi, who compared Michaela Peterson to Casey Anthony, someone who murdered their own child in order to attend a party. And then Rollo chokes on his words and tries to weasel his way out of his accusations once he's actually confronted.
But it definitely put a bit of a kibosh on the direction I thought my life was going to take. However, it ended up not being a negative thing. It ended up being a positive thing, but it was scary.
Put a kibosh on my personal life. Sound like killed a party? Sure does to me.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, that's the information that I had available to me. Right. That wasn't me, though. I didn't put that out. It was somebody. Actually, somebody linked me to that. So when I put something out like that, or if there's some kind of comparison to you to, like, say, Casey Anthony, that's not my intent to do that. But that's what the audience wants to see. You see what I'm saying? So maybe you're getting a wrong impression as to, like, I'm not trying to make you look like Casey Anthony. I just mentioned you in the same show as Casey Anthony.
I definitely have not made an indirect comparison between someone and someone who murdered her child and put her in a trunk.
Well, that was not my intent anyways. Sound like killed a party? Sure does to me.
So bad ideas are detrimental in their own right, regardless if it's the political right or the political left or any one of a particular ideology. But when bad ideas attach themselves to people of weak character, they create artificial personas that exist online and are detached from the consequences of the words of the actual people uttering them. And even if the words you are speaking happen to be correct in any given moment, the wrong motivation, the desire to use those words for ends other than attempting to solve a genuine problem, that can create the same detachment and constructed persona in anyone.
It does not, that doesn't prove conclusively, that it doesn't even like reach the doorstep of proving anything. That's like,
in your opinion.
Okay, sure. You know what? Hey, I just hope science is filled with more people like me and less people like you, I guess.
Maybe there'd be more children with their breasts cut off at 13, but we'll see.
But I don't know how.
Go ahead. It's what we're fucking messing around.
But I'm not in favor of teenagers
Oh.
getting SRS.
That debate was about the dangers of medical procedures being performed on underage children, and I took it as an opportunity to have fun and mess around. I am not saying, obviously, that there's no place for humor or that there's not a good time to deal with things with a light touch and not be constantly doom and gloom all the time. But the moment that I detach myself from the issues that I claim to care about, I fall into the exact same trap that I spent this entire video criticizing people for falling into. So the next time you are watching me or anyone exchanging words and ideas with each other, remember that there are much bigger things beneath those words and ideas, including motivation and bias and self-interest and ideology. And by paying attention and recognizing that, we have a genuine opportunity to advance the political conversation in such a way that benefits ourselves and our communities. So, good luck and Godspeed.